There we go. Finally, we're live. That took far too long there. It's Tuesday the 12th of December, and we are the Celtic Way with the briefing. We've got Ryan McGinley, Kevin McKenna on with me, Hamish Carton. How are we, guys? How's it going?
Not bad considering.
Yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
lot better than I was yesterday. That's for sure. I feel a lot better after our wee therapy session we had yesterday on this channel, Hamish. So yeah, I'm feeling a lot better than I was.
Yeah, we're midway through the kind of between the matches, so I feel like we want to do more looking forward than looking back because I think we can put the Kelly stuff to bed and it's yeah, thankfully we can move on from that a little bit. We are playing Feyenoord tomorrow night. It's our final Champions League match of the season, and we're kind of getting used to match day 6 being a bit of a dead rubber. But there are still some things possibly on offer to Celtic tomorrow night, so I think we can chat a bit about that. Hi everyone in the chat. How are we all feeling in general? How are you feeling about the game tomorrow night? There seems to be a fair bit of apathy in general. Ryan, reports of Celtic fans even perhaps moving tickets on to Feyenoord fans. God, what's happening?
Yeah, it's I'm struggling to get up to the game myself, in all honesty. But hopefully that'll change by the time tomorrow comes around because it's a Champions League game. Any game in Europe takes care of itself, whether they've got something to play for or not. I know that Celtic still have monetary values to play for, but at this moment in time, it's just it just encompasses the disappointment of the whole group. And I feel like Celtic are in a bit of a slump just now, and maybe that might work in their favour because they might have a wee bit more freedom tomorrow night to go and play their game. And who knows? We've been surprised before. I remember the Betis game in the Europa League. We were surprised with that. The team that Celtic played that night. I'm hoping it's a bit stronger than the team that played that night. But yeah, it's one of those ones. It'll take care of itself probably tomorrow. But at this moment in time, I'm feeling a wee bit apathetic towards it, if I'm being perfectly honest.
That's fine. Honesty's the best policy. Kevin, you were saying that you're seeing it as a bit of a grudge match, so it clearly matters to you.
Well, I actually think there's a lot more riding on this than circumstances would otherwise suggest. Yeah, it is a dead rubber. Yeah, it's been a very disappointing campaign. We've probably arguably got bigger fish to fry, i.e. find some form, sort out the defence before December the 30th. That said, however, there's a few things going on here, but one from an older generation, I'm still pained by Feyenoord beating us in 1970 in a European Cup final. The difference between being a club who's won the European Cup once and one that's won it twice. Once amazing, no other team in Scotland will ever do that again, at least we know that. But to have won it twice would have been amazing, and those of us who were very young and who watched that game will still, have horrific memories of the klaxons of the Feyenoord fans. And we just haven't beaten them. We played a friendly a year later and drew 1 each at Parkhead, and of course we were beaten in Rotterdam. Also, the 3 points give us €1 million.
More than that, it's £2.4 million for a win tomorrow.
Right. So we're not yet so replete with money that we can turn our noses up at that. But the other thing is that after our last defeat against Lazio, we were. I tweeted something that this is not good. It's one win in the Champions League in 17, but it's not. It's one win in 23. Because I'd forgotten about Brendan Rodgers' first Champions League campaign where we were in against Manchester City, Borussia Mönchengladbach, and Barcelona. That has to end. Just for our reputation, that has to end. We have to win tomorrow night, and it's much more vital that we win tomorrow night than you would say normally of a so-called dead rubber, because our reputation is tanking very, very fast. Besides the fact that Feyenoord are beatable, the other aspect I think that makes it important is that our performance, especially in the second half against Kilmarnock, was so horrible, and there's now so many question marks against so many players. I'm interested to see what the team will be tomorrow night, and I want to see what sort of response we come up with, because there are several players in that team earning big money with decent reputations, not just the team but the squad. And the fans, and this is the first time I can remember this in many, many years, I've never known the supporters to be asking so many questions and to feel let down by so many players as I am right now. And if they can't get themselves up for a game against a good Dutch team in the Champions League under the lights with that record in Europe to redeem, then we're going nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, there's still an opportunity for the team tomorrow, and Ryan mentioned that Real Betis game a couple of years ago, and my mind kind of automatically comes back to that. And, we gained something that night, even though that was, a dead rubber. Big thanks, I should have said at the start, to MPH Group and Navian for sponsoring this. It's Scotland's award-winning family-run all-trade specialists. The cold weather is rolling in. You wouldn't know it looking from my burnt face, and I was going to come on and go like that today because I've had a bit too much sun today. But for you guys, MPH has an enticing Navian boiler winter promotion. They offer flexible finance options too, so you can gear up for the chill and consider making a smart move with MPH and Navian. Kevin, I agree with a lot of the points there. The money's the big thing that I looked at. It's £2.4 million for victory. It would be a first win in 16. Obviously Anderlecht was the one, but there was a number of games before that as well, as you say. So it's been a long time since we won it at this level, and this team has never won a Champions League group stage match, so getting that victory is important as well. There's also 2 coefficient points on offer for a win tomorrow, and you might kind of not know what's 2 coefficient points, but we only have 5 so far this season. We only managed 6 last season, so we don't get many coefficient points. And I should say, of those 11 that I just mentioned there, 8 of them were just automatic for making it to the group stage. So in terms of actually getting points for actually getting results, we don't get many. So there's a chance tomorrow to get 2, and maybe a year or 2 down the line, 2 or 3 years when we have qualifiers coming back, because it seems like things are heading that way, that could be a vital couple of points that gets us seeded in a big playoff round. So we don't know, but and there's also just an opportunity for the team to try and win at this level and try and take something from the campaign, Ryan. But you can't blame supporters and us for feeling a wee bit down about it. It's totally avoidable as well, isn't it? The way the club set up for this campaign.
Yeah, I think so. And I think there would have been apathy, or a certain element of apathy anyway, due to the way the group stages went. It's also weird to say that this will be Celtic's last ever group stage game tomorrow, because they're changing to the Swiss league, the Swiss model, which will be really
moving to Switzerland.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It will be weird to play that out in real life and not just in Football Manager, because it comes around if you do a save for too long in Football Manager. But it'll be weird to see it in person. Interested to see how that goes, because it's happening for all of them, not just the Champions League, the Europa League, and the Conference League as well. It's a very unified approach, so it will be intriguing to see how that goes. I think you're swaying me towards it, the fact that record needs to be broken. Was it Ajax last time we won in the Champions League?
At home. Anderlecht away. Yeah.
Anderlecht away, Ajax at home.
Ajax at home, Kyle with the deflected shot. Yeah, I cannot believe that.
I'm sure that's 11 years ago. Maybe 10 years ago, that Ajax game.
So it would have been 2013, 2014. Yeah, it would have been over 10 years ago. Over 10 years ago, I think Beaton gets sent off in the same game. He came on after about 2 minutes and then gets sent off. Some things didn't change in that with regard to him getting thrown into the deep end in the Champions League. But yeah, it's been a while since Celtic have won in the Champions League. I always remember my first Champions League game, which was, I think it was against Villarreal. I remember Marcos Senna playing against Celtic, and Celtic won that. That was a bit of a dead rubber, but there was a bit of an atmosphere about that as well.
There was, and I remember that game. Aidan McGeady was outstanding that night, and I think he scored.
I think Sean Maloney scored as well.
What's that?
I seem to remember Sean Maloney scoring in that game. Did he score a penalty or something? I always remember that as my first game because I remember Marcos Senna because he was playing in the World Cup the year before. You just want Celtic to make a fist of it and make a game out of it because no matter how apathetic the fans are feeling outside, on the pitch they can't show that whatsoever. It's another game, it's another chance. As you say, 2.4 million's up for grabs, could potentially fund another player in January. Who knows?
I'm think of the project signings we could get for that money.
Yeah, 2 projects could come in the door. No, I'm only joking, but it's money for Celtic to gain, and that record needs to be broken. So that's a good reason, if any, for Celtic to come out swinging and go for the win tomorrow. You know, the league, the positions in the table are I think they're finalised. Feyenoord can't finish any further than third, can they not? So yeah, it's definitely something that, you know, they're playing for pride, Celtic, but at the same time, you want them to get that win and get this horrible record away.
Yeah. Kevin, you want to come in there on was it the Villarreal point? You remember that game?
Yeah. Again, you know, that game against Villarreal happened at the end of a kind of like a trilogy, a 3-year trilogy, in the Champions League, where we weren't considered. We weren't really kind of expected to do anything. It started in when we played Manchester United, Benfica, and Copenhagen, and we got 9 points because we won our 3 home games. And it was a very strange atmosphere coming away from the final game because we thought we'd, you know, just missed out, and then realised actually, and it caught out a few of the broadcasters, that we had qualified for the last 16 for the first time. And then the following year, we beat AC Milan at home, we beat Shakhtar Donetsk at home, we beat Benfica away, again at home. And then we lost out quite narrowly over 2 legs to one of the finest ever Barcelona teams in the last 16. Then you know, there's been a bit of downsizing. We get Villarreal, Manchester United again, and Aalborg. And I remember going to the Aalborg game away from home, which was in the edge of the Arctic Circle. It was the first game. And we're thinking, right, this will be the first time. This is a really good opportunity to get our first ever away win in the Champions League. And we were shocking. I mean, shocking.
Yellow kit, wasn't it?
Yep, and we were beaten 2-1 after taking the lead in the second half. However, in those days, and when I say those days, I mean, we're talking barely, 12, 13 years ago. So Celtic had a disappointing, that Villarreal group was regarded as a very disappointing year because we had got to the last 16 in the previous 2 years. But we got 5 points, including a point at home against Manchester United. As I said, a very rare win against a Spanish team, and we only drew against Aalborg at home. But the level, the quality in Europe has shifted up an extra couple of gears in terms of, you know, what the clubs from the top 4 leagues have at their disposal. And that has been reflected in our performances and results. But nevertheless, you know, I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, but you look back at the 5 games that we've played in this group so far, and, you know, we played very well against Lazio at home. We played very well against Atletico Madrid at home. We were doing well against Feyenoord until the daft sending off. We've had 3 sendings off, all of them avoidable. You might say that they were all debatable from a refereeing point of view, but they were all avoidable. And we don't seem to have learned that there's certain aspects of the game in Europe, i.e. what's allowed in terms of tackling, which are different from in Scotland. And we're falling into the trap. You know, Maeda's tackle in Madrid was just a nonsense. I mean, you could debate whether it was a red card or not, but the fact is he's tackling an opposition player who's facing his own goal in his own half. That's the sort of tackle that real quality players don't make, because they don't have to make, because there's nothing to be gained from it. And we do it. We're doing it at this level year in, year out, and we get caught out. And it's one of the things I keep hearing. We need to learn lessons from Europe. Well, that's one that we keep. We never do seem to learn from. I can't stress how vital it is, for us to win tomorrow night, just because it's horrible seeing Celtic being mocked on the continent and in the UK by clubs who've got nothing of our history, nothing of our legacy in Europe. And they just look at that record. Even, kind of new fans, you want a new fan base. We're talking about, Celtic always talk about marketing opportunities abroad. Well, doesn't do much for your marketability when people say, oh, who's this Celtic club with the fancy hoops with the great history? How many games have they won in the Champions League? So there we go. Ran over.
No, listen, I think we all kind of feel like that. It's just like the Champions League for me has gone from this incredible thing that I used to absolutely look, I couldn't wait for the matches, and then it's just become this thing for me this year where I still get kind of up for the games, because you've always got that what if in the back of your mind. What if this is the night that we get a big win? And don't get me wrong, some of the games, all of the games have been, apart from the one in Madrid, have been close.
Yeah.
But there has been a kind of sense of inevitability. The best way I can explain it is the 2 times we went ahead against Atletico Madrid, I didn't believe at either stage we were actually going to win that match. I always kind of thought maybe a draw is the best that we could get, but maybe that's a reflection of who we're up against and the quality. Maybe that's the way European football is now, stacked heavily towards probably 7 or 8 teams. But there's also an element of Celtic needing to do, much better at this level. Just a few comments. Hazel, this is just a kind of widespread, wide-ranging views on the game tomorrow. I couldn't care less about tomorrow night, to be honest. Just hope we get through injury-free. It's my only worry. I think Hearts is by far the biggest game this week. Blake saying money to play for, yes, but could also break the Champions League duck. Jerry, hope we get a result tomorrow. We have to get back to winning ways for the rest of the season. Maestro saying get out and win it, confidence builder. Chill pill, I'm still pissed from Sunday, lost interest in Wednesday's game. And John saying on the way over from Galway, can see a few goals as both teams have their fate sealed. Come on, Kyogo. I think we will see some goals tomorrow, given that the match doesn't really kind of massively. Certainly the positions in the group aren't going to change for either team. Ryan, do you think winning the game tomorrow would have an effect for coming seasons on this team? The fact that they were able to win a game, would that mean that they'd be better next year? Or is it a meaningless game and does it have very little kind of relevance?
I think it can have a positive effect of those players that win the game tomorrow, if they do so, stay at the club for longer. It's all about getting that consistency, but you can only get that consistency if players stay for 3-4 years at a time, which is always going to be quite difficult for Celtic, especially now in the current market, where they're going to be a selling club a lot of the time. I don't think we're under any illusions that some of our best players will leave after 2 or 3 seasons. That's just the way that the market is now for Celtic, even more so. Celtic have got to find a way to keep up with these teams. Only way they can do that is by getting good fees for their players. But I think it can help, some of those players, maybe even squad players that will stay with the club, while other maybe more star players go in the next couple of years. It can definitely help for momentum if they can stay and have that momentum and bring that into forthcoming seasons. It's going to be so weird next season with this new system. You're playing 4 games at home and 4 games away. You're playing games after Christmas, so the whole argument of European football after Christmas, there's 2 fixtures in January, so that kind of blows that out.
We'll still find a way to be out of Europe before Christmas. I don't know how we'll do it, but we'll find a way.
It's crazy though. It'll take some getting used to, that's for sure. But I feel you were talking about not really getting up for games. In some ways I agree, because I just feel as if right now at this point in time Celtic are a Europa League team playing in the Champions League. They're I think they would do a lot better if they were in Europa League, because there would be similar sort of levels of opposition. Maybe there'd be one team that would be better than them in the group. I don't know what sort of pot they would be in if they were to go in the Europa League, but it just seems as if the team would be so well equipped for European results in the Europa League with the teams that they'd be matching up against. But in the Champions League, they're getting punished for the smallest of mistakes, smallest of margins. You look at that Lazio game in particular, Palma was inches offside, or Maeda was inches offside, and that leads to his goal getting taken away. Then it's Celtic's naiveness at the end of the game from Carter Vickers, and Lazio pounce. They're not a team that have been in the Champions League every single season, but they've just got good players that know how to spring a result out of nowhere, even when they've been struggling under Sarri this season. Atletico Madrid are a good side. They showed that away from home, and they showed that in parts at home as well, Griezmann in particular. So as much as I want Celtic to be playing in the Champions League, I just feel as if they're a bit of a Europa League team at the moment, and it's difficult to bridge that gap with just the league that Celtic play in, to be honest with you. It's difficult to bridge that gap is what I'm trying to say. But you want Celtic to be playing in the Champions League, but I think their level is more suited to Europa League. I think they could possibly do a run in that competition, but at the same time, you want to be playing in the Champions League. So it's a weird conundrum to be in.
And of course, this is the last season where you can drop in from the Champions League to the Europa League. So from next year onwards, if you start in the Champions League and get through to the Swiss League or whatever it is, you'll be in there, until the exit, effectively. Kevin?
I agree with you, Ryan, up to a point with regard to Champions League versus Europa League. I just think psychologically, if the fans begin to accept and the idea begins to kind of embed itself that we're a Europa League team, then, the overall kind of framework around the team, our overall sense of ambition takes a step down, and I'm not sure. I wonder if some of the directors would rather that be the case, that the fans accepted that we were just a Europa League team, because it means that they can trim their budget accordingly. They can trim everybody's expectations. We can kind of we begin to kind of go for slightly inferior players. I'm not saying we can go out and just get serious players, but occasionally you might just get one. And then I look at clubs. You look at Copenhagen, who are doing well what they've done this season. You look at the likes of Benfica, any of the big three from the Portuguese league, even Holland, which is comparable. Every so often Ajax will take a few hits every few years, but then they'll build something because their youth academy is so excellent, and they kind of all flower at the one time. And as we saw the other year, when I think it was 2019, when they really how they lost to Spurs in the Champions League semi-final is unbelievable. And you're not telling me that Ajax team couldn't have taken Liverpool, given them a far better game in the final than Spurs did. So these are comparable teams with us, right? Now they're not doing it every year in the Champions League, but every few years they'll have a go. They'll get a few wins. They'll get to the last 16. I even remember when we began competing in the Champions League in 2001. We were up against Rosenborg from Norway. Rosenborg, the amount of times they not only reached the Champions League but actually got into the knockout stages was incredible. And that's a stadium that, a fifth the size of ours, nothing like our resources, not coming from a country that is devoted to football as Scotland is. So there are comparisons there. I just wonder if our board of directors have, just begun to manage expectations amongst all of us down. Of course, it was great in 2003 when we got into the old UEFA Cup, but we were tipped out of the Champions League very narrowly which meant that we went into the UEFA Cup. I think we were beaten on the away goals rule by Basel, Switzerland. And yeah, it was great. We beat Blackburn, we beat Stuttgart, we beat Celtic Vigo, we beat Liverpool. We lost narrowly in the final to Porto with all those great memories. I took that as a bonus. You know, it was great for the history. Yeah, we can do it again, but we can't. We've got to keep insisting that we're a Champions League team. You know, and by that I mean that we can get into the Champions League and be respectable, hang on to our self-respect, get the odd victory, compete, stop making stupid mistakes, and give the fans a realistic possibility. You know, when we go into it, that we might actually make the knockout stages, because there are clubs with fewer resources than ours playing in similar types of leagues to ours who do it more than occasionally.
Yeah, I mean, when you see the argument, you always see it, you know, after Celtic have gone on a bad run in the Champions League, people listing, you know, a number of teams and saying, oh, they're struggling, like it's too difficult for clubs from these countries. But the issue is that, you know, Benfica are struggling this year in the Champions League. They've only actually got 1 point, but
it was in the last game.
Years, yeah, and in previous years, though, they make it through to the last 16, so they've not gone through a period like we have where we struggled. But yeah, I feel like it's kind of a debate that people have been having for ages, but it doesn't make it any easier. I just hope going forward that, you know, tomorrow can be a big result. How do you think the players will be feeling, Ryan, after the weekend? And is there I guess there's an opportunity there for them?
That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that the players do see it as an opportunity to not necessarily put things right, because it's a different competition altogether, but to change the mood music around the place. You know, it's an opportunity for them to get more of a feel-good factor going into the game against Hearts, because, you know, I think it could be a bit of a frosty atmosphere tomorrow, given the way things happened on Sunday. They'll probably be wanting to reverse that going into the Hearts game at the weekend. That certainly won't be helped if they were to potentially get a defeat against Feyenoord, or a heavy defeat. That would only worsen things. I'm certainly hoping that isn't the case. But, you know, tomorrow is an opportunity for them to change the mood music around the place, to get a good feeling about themselves in Europe. Because, you know, looking at the games that they've played, they probably should have had more than just the 1 point that they've received thus far. You look at that Lazio game in particular, they should have at least drawn that game. There was fans all around me in the stadium that would have been disappointed with a draw, given how well that they played. So the fact that it was a defeat was kind of unfathomable, and people were just walking out the stadium bewildered as to how that result happened. I was the same. Yeah. I was completely shocked that Lazio managed to win that game when Celtic were in control for large portions of it. But yeah, it's Celtic in Europe. Unfortunately, these things happen. These things manifest themselves sometimes, and yeah, tomorrow's a really good opportunity for them to put the mood music right and get that horrible record away from Europe. If they can do that, then hopefully it would help them going into next season. But if they win the game, it would definitely, the feel good factor would return slightly if they were to get a win, even though people would maybe be questioning why they didn't get those sorts of results earlier on in the campaign to affect the group. But, you know, can't do anything about that. There's no time like the present, and you just hope that they can spring a result out tomorrow.
Well, what's the mood music like at the moment, and what would it be? What tune's playing at the moment, and what tune do you want to be playing by tomorrow evening?
It's a bit of a sad one just now, to be honest. I know you have put me on the spot. It's a bit of a sad one, to be honest, especially on social media. It seems like there's a lot of finger pointing everywhere at all angles.
Is it that mad world who sings that? Is that what's playing at the moment?
Tears for Fears.
Yeah, something like that.
It's. I just feel like it's been such, and I wrote about this today in articles on the website today. I feel like it's been such a roller coaster season of form in terms of going up and down. There's been highs such as Hibs and Hearts in the Rangers game, to lows like the St Johnstone game, the St Johnstone at home game, and the game on Sunday. There's no consistency with the form. It's consistently inconsistent in that regard. It's just going up and down. And I don't think Europe has helped in that matter, because Celtic will go on a bit of a run, they'll hit a European game, they'll either get beat or draw as they did against Atletico Madrid, and then all of a sudden, that form's out of the window. I don't think it's helped in that regard. So there needs to be a change in the mood music. The mood music needs to be a bit more cheerful come tomorrow night, I would say.
There was a comment in there from Mr. Freeland saying I'd play the youth team after the weekend's performance. Any thoughts on that, Kevin?
Well, I mean, you can't. I know we want to concentrate in the future, but the nightmarish aspects of that performance against Kilmarnock, it's only 2 days later, are giving me a lot of cause for concern. I know Europe should take care of itself, but we've got Hearts coming up. We've got Rangers at the end of the month, and all of a sudden we look fragile, and all of a sudden every other club in that league knows that if they attack us judiciously, take their moments, exert any pressure, especially in the left side of that defence, there's a goal in them. They know that even Celtic taking a 1-goal lead in games, which is usually, not saying game over, but it's usually the springboard for us to kind of knock it about, eventually get a second goal. It's not. Clubs know that we are fragile because we begin to retreat, we begin to knock it sideways, back, we begin to get nervous, we look nervous. I mean, I remember that Motherwell game a few weeks ago. I knew that equaliser was coming because they just looked nervous, and so did Motherwell. Hearts will come to Celtic Park. Previous years they'd be like, well, see if we can get a point. If we can get a point here, we'll be fine. Hearts will be coming here to win on Saturday, and no wonder. And maybe it's for another time to kind of analyse how we've got here. And I've already had my say, as have you two and Tony, about the project players and how you get a situation where you sign 9 players over the summer, and the 2 most expensive of those not only do almost every one of those 9 players not feature halfway through the season, but the 2 most expensive ones can't even make the squad. If this was a publicly funded company, there'd be an inquiry. There'd be an inquiry into how much the public money, the public purse was raided, and how bad the performance was of the executives in using that money. There would be performance reviews, questions would be getting asked, but we ask the question, but we never get told, because the Celtic board don't believe that giving full and frank information to the people who pay small fortunes to watch them matters too much in their business model.
Yeah, well, that's where we're at. It's a tough kind of position we're in, but there's an opportunity to the team tomorrow to kind of, while things will still be kind of going on in the background, to maybe get us going a little bit. And you're only as good as your last game, is a thing people often say. At the moment we're not very good, but who knows, come Wednesday evening we might be a wee bit better. Video wise, Ryan, anything else? We'll do one tomorrow obviously, but anything else? The press conference today,
it'll be later on today. Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear sort of even Brendan Rodgers' tone, because I thought his tone was a bit off on Sunday after the game. It'll be interesting to see where his tone is at with regard to the team and with regard to the game. He has spoken about this game a number of times, saying it's important that Celtic get a good result tomorrow night and get something in Europe for a multitude of reasons. But yeah, I'm interested to hear his tone more than anything else, because I think it's been up and down recently, and as much as I'd like to see consistency on the park, I'd like to see consistency off the park with regard to Brendan Rodgers' tone. I don't know if that's too harsh to say, but I want to just see a consistent, or hear a consistent tone. You can see that as well, to be honest, with the way that he'll answer the questions too.
Was I the only one that seemed surprised by his kind of masked criticism of Mikey Johnson the other week? When he said he has to do more. I just thought that for the first time in a few years, this young player that we've been, we're dying for him to do well, and he begins to show a bit of promise. Looks, just did well when he came on against Lazio, did well against St Johnstone, and then his manager comes out the next home game and says he has to do more. Although he was involved in a couple of the goals, I don't think he would. I think he was all right. I think he played pretty well in the first half against Kilmarnock, but he kind of suffered with the kind of the general malaise in the second half. I was just surprised at what Brendan Rodgers said about him in public. Thought that's not the way to get the best out of, or to build the confidence of somebody who needs confidence building because of the injuries that he's had and knows he's probably in the last chance saloon. I mean, what did you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's been interesting. I mean, I think Johnson will be back in the team tomorrow, but his kind of media stuff in general has been a little bit all over the place. He was really critical, after the St Johnstone game of the first half, and yet the second half performance at the weekend was much poorer, and he didn't seem to be as bothered about it. There's a lot wrong at the club at the moment, but as I keep saying, hopefully Brendan Rodgers can sort his tone. We can sort Tony. Tony should be back at some stage. We got a few comments about that, so Tony will be back at some stage. Listen, we're going to head off, guys. I appreciate your time once again, and as we say, we'll have more to look forward to this time tomorrow ahead of the game. So thanks very much, Ryan and Kevin. Thanks everyone for tuning in to this live and watching afterwards as well. Cheers everyone. Speak to you soon.